I really like Tom's hypothesis that that a smaller built environment might actually make us happier people, and I think that fits in really well to my introduction for our next speaker, Dr. Daisy Huang. Daisy, actually, her story mirrors my own really closely. We both came up to Alaska from faraway places, and in Daisy's case, California, to go to graduate school. And as part of that, you know, you're a starving graduate student. What are you going to do? You're going to find a cheap place to live. And in Fairbanks, Alaska, that means moving into a dry cabin, which I found out isn't actually a common term. If you try this on other people, they don't understand it in the lower 48. But basically, you know, living in a home without indoor plumbing, without running water, usually with access to electricity. In my case, I didn't even have that, actually. And that makes you start to think a little bit about energy, pretty literally. If you're having to cut your own wood to heat your own home, it really makes you think a lot about how much we've taken advantage of access to cheap, reliable, and affordable energy in our lives. And so Daisy, after getting her degree in mechanical engineering, PhD in mechanical engineering at the University of Alaska Fairbanks, decided to come and continue on as both a researcher with the Alaska Center for Energy and Power and a faculty member in the mechanical engineering department at the College of Engineering and Mines. And so we're really pleased to have you here tonight, Daisy, and thank you for joining us. Everyone, please give a warm welcome to Dr. Daisy Huang.
Thank you, Gwen. So, as Gwen kind of alluded to, I moved up here as a grad student, and having come from a background in industry, it was a big change for me. I'm originally from San Francisco, the standard immigrant story. My mom was an immigrant. I grew up driven. I was the top of my high school class. I went to a top high school. I went to a top university. I graduated at the top of my field. And then, to make things even worse, I graduated during the dot-com boom. I'm not sure if you guys recall this. They were recruiting basically any warm body with an engineering degree. So now, to add to my qualifications, I had an inflated ego, an inflated title, an inflated salary, and I was 23, so you can think about how bad this would be for me. I thought I was the bomb. But you know, as things happen, the dot-com boom came to a crash. I mean, I'm sure a lot of you remember those companies that very quickly became worthless. And around the same time, a lot of other things happened to me, bad relationships, my dog died, family crisis, yada yada, and so I decided to move to Alaska because, of course, that's what you do. So I packed up what was left of my pets, my 2 rabbits, and we hit the Alcan, 3,000 miles in the Subaru, held together with duct tape, and I hit the ground running, as Glenn said. I looked for housing. Most of the rentals here were horrible. I saw this thing along the Chena with grass growing out of the floor. That was really interesting to me. And I saw dry cabins advertised. And I thought, man, these are some judgmental landlords. I could not deal with that either. I thought that you couldn't drink. So I avoided those. But when I learned what that was, I thought, what a great way to save money. So I bought one. And I learned a lot. Where I'm from, there's no snow. I very quickly learned that shoveling the driveway is a lot of work, and staying warm is a lot of work. The first time I shoveled my driveway, I think I ate 10 PBJs and like a pint of Haagen-Dazs. But anyway, so there I was, and I learned a few things. First, going from being a hotshot design engineer in Silicon Valley, where I didn't even know where my power came from, I flipped on the lights, there it was. If there was a power outage, it would be 45 minutes, light the candles, romance. When there's a power outage in Alaska, it's actually really bad. People can die. And my electricity bill, all of a sudden, was not just trivial. I was in California during an energy crisis, and when the cost of power suddenly went up by 60%, I didn't even feel it. It was so far beyond the decimal point. But as a starving grad student, it was not trivial. I moved out the year oil prices all of a sudden spiked. 2007 to 2008. And you'll probably, those of you that were around will recall that oil prices suddenly went from like $3 a gallon to $5. People in the villages were hit really hard because they use oil almost exclusively for heating in places with no trees. And people were hungry. I mean, I actually heard of homes consolidating and people eating 1 meal a day. Obviously, I wasn't hit as hard, but it was still, it was still a hard lesson for me. I decided, oops, oh gosh. I decided I would try to use that beast. I learned about splitting wood and hauling wood and how to use a chainsaw. I learned this from Google. How to use a chainsaw. No, I'm not joking. How to use a chainsaw. And then I tried to split wood with an axe. That wasn't that great. How to purchase a mall. I am 5'5". Anyway. And I lit some smoky fires. Yeah, so then when I started to work for ASAP, I learned that a lot of the issues that hit me as a person also hit communities. As it turns out, being a little person in a little dry cabin with my wood heat, storing firewood, obtaining fuel, keeping warm for a cost that I can afford is very similar to the issues that a community faces. And one of my first jobs at ASAP was to do a community survey. We followed up with communities that were given grants by the Alaska Energy Authority to put biomass systems in the villages. And Art Nash did that with me. Are you here, Art? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm usually annoying all by myself and I don't require electronics. But anyway, so Art is a really great guy and not really. Art and I contacted all these communities and we asked, how is your biomass doing? Are you really saving money? Are you offsetting all of the fuel that you thought you would? Are you saving all the money? What are you doing with the money you saved? And it turns out that they were doing really great. Number one, biomass is very old technology that people are familiar with. They all understand how to harvest. Unlike me, they already knew to harvest wood early, harvest it when the sap is not running, let it dry. They knew how to handle it. And biomass also provided jobs. As I learned, and this is why I have shirts from California that I don't fit anymore, handling biomass is actually a lot of work. And in the villages, when you hire a high school kid to split and haul wood for you, that's a job for a kid to buy his pop and maybe not get into trouble all day. In Tanana, they actually, the city manager at the time actually encouraged building a local economy around biomass. That picture I actually took in Tanana. He got grant funding to retrofit all of the city buildings, or most of the city buildings, one by one with biomass-fired boilers. They look like this. They're a little different from my wood stove because instead of stoking back the fire when it's warm enough, you keep the fire going full bore all the time, and what you control instead is the rate of a water jacket circulating that heats the buildings, so it's actually more efficient, and it requires a little bit less maintenance. So anyway, he put these in a lot of the community buildings, and he put out an open call to residents, anyone who's willing to bring a cord of wood to help heat a city building, you get, I think it was $300 a cord at the time, now I think it's up to $375. But it created, a little local economy around biomass. They hired a full-time city manager, whatever that title is, a full-time maintenance man to maintain all the boilers. And a job in Tanana is 10% employment addition, because there's so few people. And then all of the kids, the young people that went around gathering firewood, all of a sudden they were spurred to think about the future. A lot of them said they were saving up to eventually further education, and it was really cool to see. Wood heat, as it benefited me, I saw also benefited communities. And that's what made me think that maybe not all solutions are what you think they'll be. Being a high-tech background person from the Silicon Valley during the dot-com boom, I'm not sure if you'll recall, but at the time people thought anything .com was cool. It's new. People were selling products that didn't actually exist. They were data management companies that before data management was even a big issue. But it turns out that the solutions are not always the flashy high-tech ones. Sometimes the very old tried true ones are the ones you need. So I also want to talk a bit about what it takes to make biomass products succeed. Having a biomass project in my own home has given me some background on this, and when I did the survey with Art, I came to realize that the things that will define success or failure in my case are the same things that define success or failure in the case of the community. So one of the requirements is low capital cost. Another is low fuel cost. In the case of Alaska, we often can get biomass for really cheap because they cut a lot of wood for fire remediation, and sometimes there's wind events, and then they just put out an open call that people can harvest it. In my case, there was wood lying all over my property from when the land was originally cleared, and the same factors come into play on the community scale. However, one of the things I came to realize, and Art is actually a social scientist. His degree's in economics, but he's done a lot of community outreach. And what he helped me to see was that it's not just the economics that will make biomass fail or succeed. So in my case, like I couldn't afford heating oil, and so I switched to biomass to save money, and the payback was immediate for me. But in a community, the person who stokes the boiler, if they don't stoke the boiler, and the fire just goes out, and then the oil stove kicks on to heat the community, it's not money actually out of their wallet, it's money out of the community pocket. And so if the person themselves is not motivated to keep the fire going, the money's not actually saved. Like you put in all the capital and you don't get the payback. So what it actually takes is more than that. It's also community involvement. People take pride in their community. People take pride in sustainability. Town actually became a model community. Politicians went in and took pictures of biomass boilers. It was really exciting. So yeah, some of those requirements. There's availability of wood. There's high motivation. You can almost cook in rice. There's my domestic hot water, the dry cabin. And wood transport is also a big deal. So in my case, retired sled dogs. But also, handling firewood is just non-trivial. I came to realize the BTUs per effort is a lot higher with wood. You have to cut it to length, split it, stack it, then haul it back inside. Where oil is easy, you just have the truck deliver it. So good and bad. It's good in that it creates jobs. It's bad in that if you don't have motive, it won't keep going. Which in my case, having money was nice. So some of the other things I wanted to mention were what was done with the money saved. Just so the impact of biomass is not just the warm fuzzies and saving money, but also when Art and I surveyed the communities, we learned that some of the things that happened was that they put in more insulation in the next building, which, as Tom mentioned, actually insulation and increasing efficiency is the #1 way to save money to get more bang for your buck. Like insulating your house better gains you more than putting up a solar panel at first. The other thing they did was they were able to bring back preschool programs that had been discontinued due to lack of funding. They built greenhouses. There was excess heat from the biomass boilers that they actually ran into the greenhouses. Now on Prince of Wales, there's a school greenhouse where not only are they getting fresh vegetables in the cafeteria, which is awesome, but they're selling it to local stores and the restaurants, which is huge for them because their nutrition was not so great before that. But now they eat fresh vegetables, which is awesome. So that's about all I have on biomass, and I hope you learned something, and I hope that what you take away from this is that it's not just the engineers and the scientists. Not that we're not awesome, but we tend to swagger around and think that we're here to save the world, pat ourselves on the back with our fancy degrees. But it actually takes the social scientists and the social impacts also, and we all pull together. And it actually takes an entire community to keep a program going. So I'm really glad that you're all here. So thanks for listening, and I hope that you can all work together and save the world.